Okay. I am currently recording this Zoom meeting for those who were not able to join us for this session. Sige, start na tayo kasi medyo mahaba yung ating lecture for this session. Okay. For a while ha. Medyo hahang ang aking PowerPoint. All right. So guys, this is our last module before you take your midterm examination. When is your midterm examination? That is scheduled actually next week, which is Thursday. Okay, so today, tomorrow, and then on Saturday would be our last meetings before your midterm exam. Ayan ha. And with that, ang target natin today, we are going to discuss your introduction to hypothesis testing. Tomorrow, we will not meet via Zoom. Instead, I'll be posting the recordings for our hypothesis testing process mismo. Okay. And then on Saturday, you're scheduled for your activity. Ayan, asynchronous activity. So ngayong session lang tayo magsisynchronous. Ayan, ha? So we start with your hypothesis testing. Okay. Bear with me kasi medyo mabagal ang aking laptop. Ayan. So start tayo sa simple recall. Sana, yan, dumami na tayo, 9 na sila. Wow. Okay, for those who are late, please type in your complete name on our chat box. That will serve as your attendance for this session. Ayan. At nag-log na yung aking PowerPoint. Saglit lang ha. Okay. Sige. Let's recall first some of the important concepts for us to further understand the context of our last module for the midterm grading. Okay, so we have the concepts population and of course sample. These two are not new to you. These were already introduced during your STEM when you were in, for those who are under STEM, yan, track. And of course, meron din naman sa sa Prob and Stat. Yan. So which is under your grade 11 level. Okay? So when we say population, so it entails or it actually is the summation of all observations on a given study. Diba? So if in case that later you'll have your undergraduate research, yan. So kunyari you want to conduct a study regarding COVID positive patients. Yan. Population would be the whole number of COVID positive patients in nakadepende kung anong local mo, of course. And we have here your sample. When we say your sample, this is just a subset of your population, okay? Or a portion of your population that you take out. Yan. And based from the previous module, di ba, we had denoted your population as your capital letter N or big N. And your sample size or your sample as small letter. Okay. So to further understand that one, sige, i-visualize natin. For example, this is your population, yan, capital N. So a portion of that would be your sample. Okay? Dapat very established ang difference between population and your sample, ha? Okay. Next tayo. Next concepts or concept. Yan natin. Okay, so we have here the term statistical inference, generalizing a sample to a population, okay, with calculated degree of certainty. Yan. Simple recall tayo. So we have here statistics. Diba? So your statistics is actually classified into two. We have your descriptive stats, okay, and of course your inferential statistics, if you can still recall from our previous module. So inferential statistics here, guys, is the same with your statistical inference, wherein you are just going to study your sample. You come up with a certain generalization that is applicable to the whole population. Most often than not, this is the type of research that we utilize, right? Especially for quantitative researches. And of course, we have here the term degree of certainty. Pag tinanong nyo ako, ma'am, anong degree of certainty? Okay? So, ibig sabihin nito, statistically, this is your level of confidence. So, level of confidence was actually introduced on your previous module, di ba? So level of confidence, gaano ka kay kakampante, gaano ka ka-certain na yung study mo is actually correct. And usually, the rate is 95%. Yan, kung maalala nyo ito. Okay? So that's why it's very important that you guys are watching the lecture videos before you proceed to the next module. Kasi hindi nyo talaga maiintindihan. Kasi nga, syempre, spiral. Okay? Kung ano yung natutunan nyo sa previous module, connected siya. Especially kung mag-progressive yung topics natin. Okay? So, there, statistical inference. And next, pasensya nyo ng aking sulat. Mahirap kasing magsulat via Zoom. Okay? And of course, we have the terms parameter and statistic. Yan. So I hope no, alam natin kung anong difference ng dalawa. Yan. So when we say parameter, okay, so any numerical data which came from your population is classified under your parameter. Whereas, on the other hand, any numerical data that you gather from your sample is under your statistic. Asan ang aking cursor? Okay, it's under statistic. Ulitin natin. If your data came from a population, you consider parameter. If your data came from a sample, you consider it as statistic. And under hypothesis testing, we will just be utilizing parameters here. Parameters in constructing your null and your hypothesis later. Okay, so what are the examples of your parameter? So we have here your population mean, yan, which is represented by this symbol, mu. Okay. So what is population mean? What is mean again? This is just simply the average. So if you get the if you get the average, okay, of a certain data set, that is your mean. Bakit siya naging population mean? If your data came from a population. On the other hand, we have here the term sample mean. Ayan. Sample mean, the average came from a sample. And what is our notation? It is X bar. Ayan ha, X bar for sample mean, mu for your population mean. Okay? And of course, another parameter, we have here your population proportion. Ayan. So, i-discuss natin dito kasi hindi ko to na-discuss nung previous. Okay? When we say population proportion, this is just a fraction. Ayan. Fraction of your population. Fraction. When we say fraction, it's like 3 out of 5 or 10 out of 20. Fraction. Okay, this is just a portion. And if your data came from a population, it's called population proportion, which is denoted by simply small letter P. Small yan, hindi yan malaki. Kasi kapag big, di dapat naka-align siya doon sa N, di ba? So small letter P. And if your proportion came from a sample, it is called a sample proportion, which is denoted by your symbol P hat. P hat. Kasi kasla kalugong. Okay, P hat. Ayan. Let's give more example for you to further understand your population proportion. Okay? So, sabi ko nga kanina, 3 out of 5, mga ganon. Let's say there is a certain population on a certain area. Okay? Saan kayo laging nakatambay nung face-to-face classes? So, kunyari sa Burnham. In Burnham Park, there are actually 500 population of 500 people are in Burnham Lake. Sabihin natin, nagsasagwan sila. Okay? Out of 500, 200 ang magjowa. Sana all. Okay? So out of 500, 200 ang magjowa. So how will we represent that one as a population proportion? Yan. So simply, this is just your x all over n. Okay? Or we have here your 200 all over 500. 200 all over 500 is 0.4. 0.4. Ayan. Or simply 0.40 or 0.4 or 40%. Okay? Kasi nga proportion, fraction siya. So, i-distinguish natin. Paano kapag mean? Pag mean, yung plain numerical value lang yan. Kapag proportion yung given, you could either see a decimal value or a percentage value. So, ulitin ko, pag mean, any numerical value yan. Walang percent sign. Pag proportion, naka-decimal value yan or naka-percentage siya. Or meron yung nakasulat na 9 out of 10, 11 out of 15. Mga ganon. Proportion yun. Okay? And further, your proportion only ranges from 0 to 1. Kasi nga decimal value, 0 to 1 lang yan. Or in percentage, it only ranges from 0% to 100%. Yun na yun. Yun na yung ating borderline when we say it's population proportion. Okay? I hope you were able to distinguish no kung ano ang kaibahan ng population mean sa population proportion. Yan, ha? Next, let's try to relate statistic and parameter in terms of statistical inference. I'll repeat, we try to relate statistic and parameter in terms of statistical inference. I advise you, no, if you had joined the Zoom, please, huwag kayong hihiga lang at makikinig. Take down notes. That's why I mentioned it would be better if you had printed out the document that I had posted under module 6. Okay? Kasi itong mga to, makakalimutan agad natin kapag hindi natin inonotate. Yan, ha? So we relate the two concepts with respect to statistical inference. Sabi natin sa statistical inference, we will utilize a sample to generalize something towards your population. Okay? So your X bar or your sample mean later on, sample mean will be utilized to what? Generalize something out of the population mean. Ulitin ko. Statistical inference, we are going to study the sample, generalize something that will affect your population, towards your population. So relating it to our parameters, okay, we have your sample mean, your X bar. It will be utilized to generalize something out of your population mean. Okay? Whereas, on the other hand, on the second parameter, we have here your p hat, your sample proportion will be utilized to generalize something, come up with something that is about your population proportion. That's the main goal of statistical inference. Okay? So you may take a screenshot if you wish. Kung ayaw niyong mag-notate, pwedeng screenshot lang tayo. Screenshot. I will now clear all of the drawings. We proceed to the next slide. Recall lang yan, ha? Dapat naintindihan natin kasi kailangan natin yung mga concepts na yan. Okay. So we have here a question. What is hypothesis? Yan. I know that you are familiar with the term hypothesis, pero ano nga ba yan? Okay? So, most likely na-encounter nyo yan nung high school pa lang kayo. We have your scientific method, di ba? There is a step there wherein you need to conduct or construct your own hypothesis. If I may share, during our, kailan ba yun? Basta, walang junior high school, senior high school noon eh. Basta nung high school kami, during our bio class, they let us experiment things. Okay? Like for example, we have two plants, plant A and then plant B. Your first plant will be left inside the classroom with no proper sunlight. Sakto lang yung sunlight. Galing from the window. And then your plant B will be left outside the classroom wherein there's proper sunlight and of course, proper circulation of air. Ayan. So, we need to ask a question. Kasi nga, di ba, scientific method. Ask a question. Which of the two will grow faster? Yun yung question namin siguro. And then we did our research background. Oh, sunlight helps ganito, ganito. Most likely, pag-aaralan nyo lahat-lahat yan since you are nursing students. So, what's the effect of sunlight towards the growth of plants? Mga ganun. After researching, we come up with a hypothesis. So what's our hypothesis? That plant B will have the growth of plant B will be significantly different from the growth of plant A. Okay, so in Tagalog, mas lalaki ng yung paglaki ng plant B ay significant kumpara dun sa paglaki ng plant A. Kasi plant B is receiving proper sunlight and air. That's our hypothesis. We had undergone the experiment, analyzed the data, of course we measured and so on. We tallied, then we came up with a conclusion. So your hypothesis later on, we are going to test it whether it's true or false. Ganon yung pagkakaalam natin sa hypothesis, di ba? If na-encounter nyo ang word na hypothesis dati. Okay? So, when we say hypothesis, it's pretty much the same. So, most likely, this is an educated guess. Okay? Bakit kaya natin nasabi na educated guess siya? O meron siyang specific na limitation. Educated dapat. So according to the definition we have here, a supposition or proposed explanation based on what? Limited. Oh, sorry. I must not move that one. So based on, let's highlight this one, limited evidence as a starting point for further investigation. So according to this definition, you should have at least a limited evidence wherein that will serve as your starting point. Okay? Hindi pwedeng basta-basta na lang yan random guess. Like random guess. Hindi yan pwede. That's why it's called educated guess. Meron siyang basis. Hindi man concrete, at least meron. O, i-relate natin yan sa ating daily life. So, kunyari, your parents. Your parents, instead of sharing the food with you, binibigay na lang lahat nila yung food nila sa inyo. Tapos napapansin mo, as days goes by, pakunti ng pakunti yung kinakain ng mommy mo at daddy mo. Pero ikaw, hindi nababawasan yung kinakain mo araw-araw. Based from that limited evidence that you have observed, observation is also part in collecting evidence. Diba? So based from your observation, like, bakit kaya pakunti ng pakunti yung kinakain nila? Whereas ako, ganito pa rin naman yung kinakain ko. Marami pa rin akong kinakain. Nagkaroon ka na ngayon ng hypothesis. Baka naman nagkakaroon na kami ng financial crisis. Hindi ko pa alam. Ayaw lang nila ipaalam sa akin. So that's your hypothesis. Where did it came from? A certain evidence. Where? Your observations. Okay? So educated guess siya. Hindi na lang siya basta-bastang sasabihin mo na, wala na, naghihirap na kami. Siguro may utang yung tatay ko na 1 milyon doon sa bangko. Ganon. Okay. Saan nanggaling yung 1 milyon? Bakit 1 milyon? Bakit hindi 50,000? Bakit hindi 10,000? Wala, naisip ko lang. Okay? So, hindi siya basta-basta na iniisip lang. Dapat meron kang basis. Educated guess. Okay? We move on to the next definition. And which is the very important one, which is a very important one. So it says there, yes, this is an educated guess that you need to test. Okay? You need to test test through study and of course, experimentation. Oh, like kanina, yung hypothesis mo, siguro we're having financial crisis. Okay? Paano mo siya ite-test? You talk to your parents probably. You do your own research. Yan, magtanong-tanong ka sa mga tita mo, tita, kung anong nangyayari sa parents mo, anong nangyayari sa family ninyo. Yan. So that's hypothesis. And another example are your COVAX or your COVID vaccines. So your COVID vaccines were released to the public, okay, and had undergone clinic before they were released to the public. Of course, they had undergone maraming clinical trials. Yan. Maraming clinical trials ang nangyari. That's why we have here your efficacy rates. It varies depending upon the type of vaccine. Yan, meron tayong 95% efficient or efficacy rate, 66 and so on. Ganon. Okay, so that's your simply hypothesis. We move on to the next slide. Kung kanina hypothesis, ngayon, let's mainly focus on statistical hypothesis. So it says there, a conjecture or supposition about, yan, naka-highlight ang ating term na population parameter. Okay, so this conjecture may of course be true or not. That is the main goal. We are going to test if it's true or false. Okay, this one is highlighted. We have here your population parameter. That's why I mentioned yung mga hypothesis natin later on will be based from your parameters. And we will only utilize two parameters, your population mean and of course your population proportion. I repeat, we will only utilize two parameters, your population mean and your population proportion. No more, no less. And your statistical hypotheses are divided into two types. Okay? We have here your null or negative, alternative or affirmative. Same yung definition nila, yan, null or negative, alternative or affirmative. For the sake of discussion, for unison, okay, para lahat tayo pare-parehas, we will all use or utilize the term null for your first hypothesis. And for the second hypothesis, we'll have your alternative hypothesis. For those who printed out their notes, please highlight null and alternative. Wala akong makikita na negative at affirmative later on your assessments. And also, of course, I will not mention those two, negative and affirmative. Medyo pwede kasing mapagbaliktad yan, yung negative at affirmative. Unlike your null and alternative na masyadong malayo yung dalawa words. Okay? So we'll clear all of the drawings again. You move on to the next slide. And we start off with defining what is null hypothesis. So we have here the symbols which we will use. We will not use the term, we will not write null hypothesis. Instead, we are going to symbolize it through, we have two symbolisms. Asan ang aking cursor? Yan. So we have here yung naka-red, H0 or your H sub O. And of course, your H0. Mamparehas naman silang circle. O ito, O or not. And then this one is your 0. Okay? This is a statistical hypothesis that states that there is no difference. No difference between a parameter, highlight the things that I am highlighting, and a particular value. So the hypothesis simply says that the observations obtained from the sample are just a result of pure chance. Pure chance lang siya. Okay. Ang i-focus natin, when we say null hypothesis, you will always remind yourself that there is no difference between your parameter and a particular value. So kung i-translate natin yung definition, through its symbolic form, okay, mathematical form. So your null hypothesis, H0 or H sub 0, it says there that between your parameter and your particular value. Ano ulit yung parameters na gagamitin natin? Diba dalawa? We have your population mean and your population proportion. So isulat natin yung dalawa. Okay? Dalawa lang ang gagamitin natin. Either population mean or population proportion. Hindi yan magsasabay. Ha? So pinakita ko kanina anong kaibahan ng mean sa proportion. Pag mean, wala yung percentage. Pag proportion, naka-percentage yan or naka-decimal value. Or meron kayong makikita doon na 8 out of 10. Kasi kapag kinuha mo yung 8, 10, di ba? 8 over 10, you will result to a decimal value. Okay? And of course, the second parameter, which is your population proportion. Sorry, that's HO, not HA. Yan, ha? So sabi dito, si parameter daw, ito, parameter, yan, either your population mean, of course, population proportion, and a particular value. Particular value na hindi natin alam yung value na yon. Pag hindi mo alam yung value na yon, paano mo siya i-represent mathematically? You use your variables. Diba? We represent x, y. That's why on your algebra, what is the value of x? What is the value of y? Kasi x, y, z, mga arbitrary variables lang yun which represent a certain value that we do not know. That is why we are computing it. Okay? So in here, ako gusto ko ng letter K na malaki. Yan, K. You may also use other variables if you wish. Pwedeng X, Y, Z, and so on. Pwede rin na ganito. Saan ang aking, yan. Pwede rin na ganito. So, on the other books, you may also see there mu sub 1. And let's say we have HO, we have here P, and then P sub 0. Usually, no, sa other books, nire-represent nila yung parameter. Ito. Yung parameters as like this. Ito yung parameters natin na. This is your population mean and another value na hindi rin natin alam. Pwede rin namang ganito. Pero mas nakakagulo, di ba? Bakit dalawa yung mu? Iisipin mo. Pero tingnan mo ha, magkaiba yung value. Sub 1, sub 2. Okay? Pero para mas klaro, we use another variable na lang, which is your K. Just like your population mean here, pwede rin namang i-represent ang population proportion as like this. P and then P sub 0. Kung sa ibang books, pwede, yun yung makikita ninyo, huwag kayong ma-confuse. So yung mu nyo dito, mu sub 0, ay mu sub 2, and then your P sub 0, this is just your value, your particular value na hindi natin alam kung ano yan. Okay? Malalaman lang natin pag alam natin yung problem later on. Alright. So next tayo. Pinakita ko na ha, that we will see that there should be your parameter and your value. Next, punta tayo dito. There is no difference. Sabi niya, there is no difference between the two. Pag wala kayong diferensya nung barkada mo, ano yung lagi nilang sinasabi? Magkapareho talaga kayo. Agpadpada kayo nga talaga. Agkarkarupa kayo. Agkakaugali kayo. Kung sa mga non-Ilocano, so excuse me. Okay? So pag sinabing no difference, most likely, magkaparehas kayo. You are what? Equal. Yan. Equal. 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 Kasi nga, you do not have any difference. Wala kayong pagkakaibang dalawa. Ibig sabihin, parehas kayo. Kaya kayo beshi. Kasi parehas na parehas kayo ng gusto, parehas na parehas kayo ng hobbies, ng course, and so on. Okay? So I hope it's clear. That's just your null hypothesis. Again, ang isipin natin pag null, H sub O, no difference. Wala siyang pagkaiba. between your parameter, either population mean or your population proportion, and a particular value. A particular value na hindi natin alam. Malalaman natin mamaya kung magbabasa tayo ng mga problems later. Okay, so this is how you will represent your null hypothesis. You may take a screenshot if you wish. And then we move on. Clear ko na ha? Move on tayo sa next slide. So alternative hypothesis, it is represented by this. Yung naka-red ang gagamitin natin ha. HA. Yan guys. HA. H sub A. So it says there, kung kanina yung null hypothesis, there is no difference. Dito naman kabaligtaran. States that a parameter and a particular value has a difference. Meron daw silang pagkakaibang dalawa. Ano kaya yung pagkakaiba nila? Significant ba or hindi? Mamaya natin i-discuss yung significance na yan. Okay? Basta ang importante, isipin natin sa alternative hypothesis, there is a certain difference between your parameter and your particular value. Okay? So, kung i-mathematically represent natin yan, represent natin mathematically, so your HA, okay? Bakit dalawa? Kasi nga, either population mean or your population proportion. Papakita natin yung dalawa. Yan ha. So we have here your population mean, population proportion. So sabi dito, meron pa rin tayong particular value. Okay? So ako gusto ko pa rin si K. Yan. Kung sa iba, gusto nila yung kanina, yung mu sub 1, tsaka mu sub 2, pwede rin naman. HA, yan, P, tapos P sub 0. Pwede rin naman. Okay? So sabi dito, there is a difference. Ano kaya yung kanilang diferensya? Kung kanina equal, ngayon naman, not equal. Yan. Not equal, not equal, not equal. We will use not equal if we do not know the direction. Direction meaning hindi natin alam kung paano yung diferensya nila. Usually, di ba, kino-compare natin yung mga bagay if kunyari ito mas mabigat, ito mas magaan, ito mas malaki, ito mas maliit. 'Di ba meron tayong basis kung paano natin ititignan yung difference ng dalawa. Either the other is greater than or the other is less than. 'Di ba? Alam natin. Pero kung walang ganun sa problem, walang nagsabi na mas maliit 'yon, mas malaki 'yon, mas mabigat 'yon, mas magaan 'yon, we will utilize your not equal. But, pag meron sa problem, that's the time that we will use. And how are you going to represent it? Either, pwede din, yan, HA, mu is greater than K, or, yan, erase ko ito. Wait lang. Mu na lang tsaka K ang gamitin ko ha, hindi na yung ito. Okay? Or mu is less than K. Ayan. So ulitin ko, pag hindi natin alam yung direction, walang sinabi kung sinong mas malaki, sinong mas maliit, gagamitin natin not equal. Kasi hindi natin alam kung ano yung difference na tinutukoy nila. Pero kung nakalagay dun sa problem that it is less, siyempre gagamitin natin to, less than. Ayan, to. One is greater than the other. May term na greater. Ayan, gagamitin natin to. Okay? And the same as true with your population proportion. Yan. So we have here HA, P, pwede rin namang ganyan, greater. Pwede rin namang less. Ha? So nakadepende later on dun sa situation ng ating study na gagawin. Okay? And it doesn't end there. Okay? Please take note na kapag unequal yung alternative hypothesis mo, I'll use red na lang. So kapag unequal yung alternative hypothesis mo, we utilize your two-tailed test. Once again, if your null hypothesis, your alternative hypothesis has an equal sign, wala siyang direction, it's two-tailed test. If meron siyang direction, yan, may greater, may less. Okay? You will utilize your one-tailed test. One-tailed test. Okay, please take note of that. So that's your alternative hypothesis or your H sub A. You may take a screenshot. Inom lang akong water, ha? Yan. Clear ko na all of the drawings. We move on to the next slide. Okay, so we have here your types of hypotheses. And in summary, we have two, di ba? Your null and of course your alternative hypothesis. So we will be utilizing your H sub 0 as our notation. And on the other hand, for alternative hypothesis, we'll be utilizing your H sub A. Under your null hypothesis, it states that there is no difference. Wala. No significant difference. Whereas, sa kabila, sa alternative, there is a difference. Okay? There is a difference. And the last and the most important thing, your null hypothesis is the one being tested. So on your hypothesis testing, ang itetest lang natin if it's true or false is your null hypothesis or your H sub 0. Sorry, nahatching ako. Okay, so you may take a screenshot. Clear ko, drawings. And right. So aside from the summary, I had also summarized the symbols that we'll be utilizing. Of course, your null hypothesis, paulit-ulit kong sinabi, no difference kanina. Therefore, we will just utilize one symbol, which is your equal sign. So sa alternative hypothesis, there is a difference. Not equal kung non-directional. Greater or less than kapag directional. Again, ano ulit ang definition ng directional, non-directional? Kapag hindi natin alam, pag wala sinabi sa problem na yung isa mas mabigat sa isa, yung isa mas magaan, yung isa mas konti, yung isa mas madami, anong gagamitin natin? Non-directional. Pero pag sinabi na yung isa mas maliit dun sa isa, yung isa mas magaan dun sa isa, gamitin natin to. Pag sinabi doon na yung isa mas malaki dun sa isa, yung isa mas mabigat dun sa isa, gamitin natin ito. Okay? And further, if your alternative hypothesis is not equal, you utilize not equal sign. This is we utilize your two-tailed test. Kapag directional siya, meron siyang direction, alam natin kung less than or greater than, this is, we utilize your one-tailed test. Okay? Huwag kayong ma-confuse ha later. Yan. Take a screenshot. And I will clear all of the drawings now. Yan. So, dito tayo. Hypothesis testing, utilizing your mean. Huwag kayong ma-overwhelm. Yan lang din yung pre-set ko kanina. Mas organized lang, naka-table lang siya. Okay. So, sabi natin, yung parameters na gagamitin natin sa hypothesis testing, dalawa. Either mean or what's the other one? Population, proportion. Okay. Kaya dalawa. Mean, proportion. Start tayo sa mean. Okay? So, sa mean, meron tayong null hypothesis. Okay? Nandito sa first. The second row. Okay? And of course, your third row would be your alternative hypothesis. Null hypothesis, alternative hypothesis. Paano siya madedetermine kapag one-tailed? Kapag yung alternative hypothesis mo is not equal. Kapag one-tailed ang gagamitin mo, kapag may direction. Either, ito, greater, obviously, you'll use your right. Kasi nga, going towards your right. Ang greater, di ba? Kapag less than naman, left. See, obviously, if you move to your left, kapag nasa number line tayo, papaliit ng papaliit yung number. Ulitin natin, sa number line, di ba? Pag papalayo tayo sa 0, going to your right, papalaki ng number. Okay? That's why it's greater. Sa kabila, pag mag-move tayo, going to your left from your 0 on your number line, wag may negative yan. Papaliit ng papaliit. That's why it's less than. Okay? Basic concepts. Kahit na grade 3, alam ata yan eh. Okay? And we try to recall, ma'am, ano ba yung one-tailed, two-tailed test na yan? Pasadahan lang natin. If you can still recall this, your favorite bell curve na for sure nag-require yung instructors nyo, mag-cut kayo ng hard na paper, which will be your basis for your normal distribution. Okay. So we assume that this is normally distributed. Hirap mag-drawing via annotation. Okay? So when we say two-tailed test, di ba, meron tayong tinatawag na, litan natin yung color. Okay? So meron tayong tinatawag na area of rejection or rejection region. Yan. Rejection. Yan. Rejection region or area of rejection. And of course, your acceptance region. Okay? So most likely, kapag two-tailed yan, your rejection region is divided into two. Doon sa left, doon sa right, doon sa left. That's why it's two-tailed. So this part, so those two are your rejection region. So ito, pag nandito yung data mo, nasa acceptance region pa lang siya. Okay? So dito naman sa one-tailed. Pag sa one-tailed, obviously, nasa greater, nasa right. Yan. Dito yung rejection region mo. Pag one-tailed na lesser, of course, nasa left. Nandito yung rejection region mo. The rest would be your level of, acceptance region. Okay? Hindi tayo babalik ulit dyan kasi those were already discussed during your senior high school. Yan ha. So, two-tailed test, pag dalawa yung rejection region. One-tailed right, pag nasa right yung rejection region. One-tailed test left, pag nasa left yung rejection region. Okay? Take a screenshot. You move on to the next one. So, we're done with your mean. Okay? Punta tayo sa proportion. Clear ko na yung drawings ha. Punta tayo sa proportion. Parehas lang. We just varied your symbol. So, kung kanina, tingnan natin. So, kung kanina, yan, population mean. Kasi nga, that's mean. Mu, 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 lahat. Kapag population proportion, it is P, 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 P. Pero the same. So, not equal, two-tailed. Pag greater, right, one-tailed. Pag less than, you have your left-tailed, one-tailed test. Yeah. So that's how you will write later your hypothesis, null, and your alternative symbolically. Okay? We proceed to the next slide. Oras na. Ay, kaya pa. Dami pang oras. Ito na. Main goal. So we are to state our null and alternative hypothesis. O E, kasi plural. Hypothesis, singular. Okay. So state down natin kung ano yung null and alternative hypothesis nung problem. Okay? The first step in constructing is, first, hindi kita yung yellow. First step is to identify what parameter was used on the problem. The next one to answer, is there a direction? So, directional or non-directional? Kasi kapag directional, either you will utilize your less or your greater, diba? Pag non-directional, you will utilize your not equal. So directional, further, this is your one-tailed. This is your two-tailed. Yan. So, dalawa lang ang isipin natin pag nagko-construct tayo ng null and alternative hypothesis. First, parameter. Basahin natin yung problem. A maternity hospital claims, yan. So, yung claim nila that the mean birth weight of babies delivered in their charity ward is 2.5 kilograms. But that is not what the group of obstetricians believe. Question, what is the parameter that was utilized on the problem? We only have two, population mean and your, is it mean or proportion? Yun lang. Obviously, may word na mean dito. So, anong gagamitin nating symbol kapag mean? Mu. Okay? So we will write here your null hypothesis and on the other side, your alternative hypothesis. We will utilize mu or P. Mu, kasi mean. Mu, mu. Sabi natin, null hypothesis is always equal to a particular value. Hanapin nga natin, ano ba yung value nandyan? Yung claim nila is that the mean birth weight is 2.5 kilograms. Kaya 2.5 kilograms. Sa kabila, anong sinabi natin sa ating alternative hypothesis? Pwede yung tatlo. Pwedeng not equal, pwedeng greater, pwedeng less. Dito sa problem, directional ba siya or non-directional? It is Non-directional. Bakit non-directional? Kasi wala namang sinabi na mas mababa, mas mataas. Sinabi lang dito sa second statement, but that is not what the group of obstetricians believe. Hindi naman niya sinabi na, but the group of obstetricians believe that it is lower. Or the group of obstetricians believe that it is higher. Walang sinabi. Therefore, wala siyang direction. So we have here not equal to 2.5 kilograms. Ayan. So that's number 1. Sana nasundan, ano? We move on to number 2. Second problem tayo. A teacher training institution is concerned about the rate of their graduates who pass the teacher's licensure examination. So it is alarming for them that this rate is below 35%. Okay? So for number 2, we answer the question. What is the parameter that we will use? Is it mean or proportion? Share your answer on our chat box. What will we utilize? Mean or proportion for number 2? I will wait for your answers. Please share your answers. I believe that you had joined this Zoom meeting for interaction based from your comments on our first day. Huwag kayong matatakot kung mali yung sagot nyo. Huwag kayong matatakot kung tama. Wala po tayong pangkabuhayan showcase. Okay? Na Yan. Sige. Thank you so much for sharing your answers, guys. Ang konti na nga natin, kaya wag na tayo magkakahiyaan. Okay? Very good. So, obviously, proportion yan. Kasi, yun natin, di ba? Ang proportion ulit, either naka-decimal value from 0 to 1 or 0% to 100%. Alalahanin. At dito sa problem, obviously, may percentage dyan. Okay? Alam na natin yung parameter. Sulat na natin. HO, HA. So, P, population proportion. Yan. Ang null hypothesis, always equal sign yan. Equal sign, 35%. Pwede din na decimal value, 0.35. Pwede din. Okay? So, dito tayo sa ating pangalawa. Alternative hypothesis. Is it directional or non-directional? If it is directional, please share the sign. Put the sign. Kapag non-directional, just put there not equal. Share your answer on our chat box. What do you think is our null hypothesis? Alternative hypothesis. Ano kaya yung sign ng ating alternative hypothesis? What would be the sign? Symbol. Okay? Alright? Yan. Thank you for those who answered. Obviously, no? The term below. This rate is below. Yung meaning ng below, baba. Yan, mas bababa sa 35%. So, less than 35%. Okay? Pwede rin namang decimal value, P less than 0.35. Okay? Good job, guys. Good job. So, ganyan lang. Yan. Ganyan lang ang pag-state natin ng null at saka alternative hypothesis mathematically. Okay? Math naman ang subject natin. Bakit pa tayo mag-words? Okay. So, I will now clear all of the drawings. Please take a screenshot. Balikan ninyo kung paano yan. Kung medyo nalito. Clear ko na ha. Marami pa tayong examples. Okay. We move on to examples 3 and 4. Yan. A pharmaceutical company claims that their pain reliever capsule is 70% effective, but a clinical test on this capsule showed over 65/100 effectiveness. Ano kaya ang ating parameter dito? So obviously, naka-percentage yan. Isipin nyo ha, yung claim na sentence, dun naka-base yung hypothesis ninyo. Kung anong gagamitin ninyong parameter value. Okay? Yung word na claim. Balikan natin dun sa first slide. Ano? Claims. So 2.5. Tapusin nyo yung sentence na yun. Okay? Pag may term na claims. Yan. So dito tayo. Claims that it is 0.7 the efficiency. Okay? So isulat natin null hypothesis, alternative. Obviously, this is proportion. And this one is equal, always equal. So pwedeng 70%, pwedeng 0.7 or 0.70. Alternative hypothesis natin, ano kaya ang alternative? Ayan yung magsulat. Sorry. Medyo nagloloko yung ano ko. Paano kaya tong alternative hypothesis natin? Hey, dito na tayo medyo tricky. Wait lang. Nahihirapan akong magsulat. What seems to be the problem with my drawing tablet? All right. So on the second problem, second hypothesis, which is your alternative, usually, yan, as a second sentence. But the clinical test on this capsule showed 65/100 effectiveness. Tanong natin sa sarili natin, anong sinasabi ng sentence na yan? Will it affect your claim? Will it affect your claim? Hindi. Ang sinasabi lang niyan, merong isang test na nagsasabi, hindi yan masyadong efficient. Yun lang yung sinasabi niya. Wala siyang sinasabi na, ay, masyado yang mataas. Ay, masyado yang mababa, yang 70%. Ang sinasabi lang niya, na may nag-undergone ng another test, tapos yung result niya is 65/100 ang effectiveness, which is 65%. So it does not have any bearings with the claim. Sinishare lang niya na there is another study that was conducted. Okay? Pero, mag-stick tayo sa claim, which is 70%. So anong gagamitin natin na symbol sa ating alternative hypothesis? It is not equal to 70%. Not equal to 0.7. Ulitin ko, bakit not equal? Ma'am, mas mababa naman ang 65% sa 70%. Hindi niya sinasabi yan doon sa claim. Ang sinasabi lang niya, may ibang study. Unlike yung kanina, na merong term na below 35%, may effect yun sa claim. Dito, wala yan effect. Buti sana kung yung second statement is, that is, I believe that it should be lower than 70%. Wala namang sinabi. Ang sinabi lang, there's a separate clinical test on this capsule and it showed na 65/100 or 65% yung efficiency niya. Yun lang yun. Panggulo lang yan yung second statement. Okay? So, wala siyang direction. Walang sinabing mas malaki, walang sinasabing less, greater, heavier, lower, and so on. Walang ganon. Ha? Number 4 tayo. A politician believes that he is favored by 85% of his voters. Ito yung sinasabi ko. However, an opponent says, masyadong mataas yung claim mo. So kung kanina walang effect yung second statement dun sa claim, wala siyang sinabing claim. Dito meron. Masyado kang ambisyoso, masyadong mataas yan, yung 85%. Yun yung sinasabi nila. Okay? So isulat natin, this is proportion, naka-percentage. Proportion. HA, proportion. Gagamitin ko na yung percentage ha. Okay? So sa ating null hypothesis, it is 85%. Dito sa P, it's too high. Masyadong mataas yan. Kung masyadong mataas yan, anong gagawin natin? Babaan natin. Di ba? Sa comprehension natin. masyadong mataas um, masyadong mataas yung goal mo, like 90 yung average mo, masyado yung mataas. Anong gagawin mo? Bababaan mo normally, 'di ba? So this would be less than 85%. Okay? May direction siya kasi nga may effect doon sa claim. Yan oh. May dispute doon sa claim. Ito wala naman siyang dispute. Sinasabi lang niya na may ibang study. Ito yung efficiency. Hindi yan. Kaya siya wala siyang direction. Wala siyang direction. Okay? So that's numbers 3 and 4. I will clear all of the drawings now. We proceed to numbers 5 and 6. Okay, 5 and 6. A barangay official claims that the mean family income of his constituents is 30,000. Hi, wow, sana all. But some group of residents believe that it is not true. Okay? So first, we identify the parameter. Proportion ba yan? Or mean? Obviously, may average, may mean na nakalagay. So null, and of course, your alternative hypothesis, mu. And this one is always an equal sign, which is 30 pesos. The other one, but some group of residents believe that it is not true. Was there any direction? Sinabi ba niyang, dapat mas mababa kasi mahirap lang tayo? Wala naman. Dapat mas mataas kasi mayayaman naman tayo. Wala, di ba? So, wala siyang direction. Not equal to 30,000. Okay? Number 6 tayo, a telecommunication company claims that they have 80% of all postpaid subscribers that is being refuted. I mean, dinaretso ko naman na. A telecommunication company claims that they have 80% of all postpaid subscribers. But this is being refuted by a rival company. Refuted. Okay? So we have here your null hypothesis and of course your alternative. So percentage, proportion. Portion, proportion. This is always equal. Okay? Dito sa kabila. Was there any, is there any direction? May lower, higher? Dapat mas mataas sa 80%? Dapat mas mababa? Wala, di ba? So, wala tayong direction. Okay? Yan. That's number 5 and then number 6. I will now clear all of the drawings. Proceed to the next set of problems. Okay, problem 7 and 8. An electric company says that the average consumption of residents in a certain town is 300 kilowatt per hour per month. But the town's mayor says their town's residents consume less. Yan. So for those who can construct on their own, you may just write it on your notes. Okay? So null, alternative. What is the parameter that we will use? Oh, average. What again is average? Mean. Okay? This is always equal. Oh, where's my cursor again? So 300 kilowatt per hour per month. And on the other hand, tingnan natin. But the town's mayor says that they consume less. Mas maliit daw sa 300. So less. 300 kilowatt per hour per month. Okay? So number 8. Sana no, mas mabilis na tayong mag-construct. Okay? So number 8, sabi dito, mean. Oh, mu. What is the mean weight? Is it 10 to 12? No, that's the age. Obviously, weight. Kaya dapat may unit. Okay, so it is 48 kilos. This is the claim, ha? Claim. Sentence 1. 48 kilos. Next, a small survey results in an average weight of 52. Will we use 52 as our parameter dito? Obviously, no. Because the claim is on the first statement. Okay, so doon tayo mag-focus. Parang kanina sa problem natin, So another survey, sinasabi niya na 52. Will it affect the claim? No. It does not affect. It does not state if it's higher or if it's lower. Ma'am, pero mas malaki ang 52. Pero wala siyang sinabing direction. Walang sinabing parang ito. Wala siyang direction. Nagsasabi lang siya na another study is 52 kilograms. So what kung 52 kilograms yung na-study mo? Eh yung claim ko nga, it's 48 eh. Mind your own business, girl. Parang ganon. So panggulo lang yan. Second statement. Okay? So what must be our alternative? Wala naman nakitang direction. Therefore, it's not equal to 48 kilograms. Okay, that's number 7. And then, of course, number 8. Clear ko na yung drawings ha. Take a screenshot. Numbers 9 and 10. A fitness club claims that their routines can elevate heart rates up to 200 beats per minute on the average. On the average. A critic says it is an overestimate of the actual average. Masyadong mataas. Overestimate. Okay? Identify first the null hypothesis. Very sensitive. Null hypothesis, average ha, so mu. And of course, our alternative, mu. So equal to 200 beats per minute. Beats per minute. And for our alternative hypothesis, let me ask you, what is the symbol that we need to use? A critic says this is an overestimate. Masyadong mataas. Overestimate yan. Ano kaya yung symbol na gagamitin natin? Share your answers on our chat box. I'm just interested to see kung paano ninyo i-ano yan sa null. What's the symbol? Overestimate. Masyadong mataas. Kung masyadong mataas, anong gagawin natin? Okay, good job. So, bababaan natin. Kasi nga overestimate. Hindi yan feasible. Parang ganon. Imposible. Kaya, bababaan natin. 200 beats per minute. Contrary to number 9 is number 10. Underestimate. Average. Okay. So, sulat natin, null hypothesis, mean, alternative, mean. It's 84, yung kanilang general average. Pataas na yun. Pero, underestimate daw. Masyadong mababa. Number 10 na tayo ha. Masyadong mababa yung 84. Kung masyadong mababa, anong gagawin natin? What be the symbol for your alternative hypothesis for number 10? What should be the symbol? Okay, very good. So since underestimate, masyadong mababa yung 84. Mga valedictorian yung mga yan. Lahat sila. So, magagaling sila. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, underestimate masyadong mababa. Anong gagawin natin? Taasan natin. Taasan natin sa, hindi naman na 4 to, 84. Okay? I hope the concepts are clear for you, especially constructing your null and alternative hypothesis. That's the first step to your hypothesis testing. Okay? Take a screenshot. Clear natin yung drawings. Proceed. Okay. Last 2 examples. A popcorn company says that at least 95% of their kernels will pop when microwaved. O, diba? Kumakain ba kayong popcorn? Sinong nagma-microwave? Ako ano lang, mantika. Okay? So sabi dito at least. Kapag i-transform natin yan to mathematical symbol, when we say at least, greater or equal to. Diba? At least 95. 95% and above ang meaning ng at least. So dito, we can still use 95% as our parameter value kasi merong equal sign. So greater or equal to 95. Meron pa rin equal. So pwede pa rin ang 95% na gamitin na parameter value. Okay? So we have here your HO and of course your HA. percentage, proportion, proportion. So equal to 95%, pwedeng 9.95. However, a critic says it's too high. Masyadong mataas yan. So, pababaan natin. Yan. And the last one, a trainer says his team athletes have an average. Okay? Mu, HA. Yan. Average of 92. 92 daw. But someone in the crowd think that they still need to work harder in order to reach this rate. Ito nga sa number 12, comprehensive yan eh. Ano kaya yung symbol na gagamitin natin sa alternative hypothesis natin? Our sentence goes, but some in the crowd think that they still need to work harder in order to reach that rate, which is 92% na rating. 92 na rating, sorry. Sorry. You may share your answers on our chat box. Ano kaya yung symbol na ilalagay natin dito? Medyo tricky yan, no? It's comprehensive. Okay. Answers are coming in. All right. So, tingnan natin. Kailan ka ba mag-work ng harder? Kailan ka mag-work ng harder? Parang yung example natin kanina. Kunyari yung goal mo. Yung goal mo is to earn 50,000 in 1 week. To earn 50,000, you need to work harder. Kasi alam mong masyadong mataas yung 50,000 na savings. Hindi mo kaya. That's why you need to work harder to reach it. Since masyadong mataas yung 50,000, baka you might want consider lowering your 50,000. Instead na 50,000, paano kaya yung target ko 20,000 na lang kasi masyadong mataas. Therefore, the correct answer here is less than 92. Kasi masyadong mataas yung 92 to the point that they need to work harder in order to reach it. Diba? Kapag masyadong mababa yung aim mo, mag-work harder ka ba? Hindi. Usually, kapag madali yung subject nyo, kunyari, a subject that you feel like minor lang compared sa major. Mag-work harder ka ba sa minor compared sa major? Hindi, di ba? Okay, you will only work harder when it is too high for you to achieve. Okay? So, it must be less than. Kasi masyadong mataas. Too high. That's why, bababaan natin siya. Alright? Some of you were able to get it. Okay? Pero ganun yung concept niya. You need to work harder kasi masyadong mataas. Pag masyadong mataas, bababaan natin. That's why it's less than. Alright? So, there. Is it okay if we extend for a few more minutes? Do you have any class after this? Do you have class for 11:30? May klase ba kayo?
Wala naman po, ma'am.
Wala. Okay lang na mag-extend tayo kasi we still have other concepts after this. Tapusin lang natin, no? 11:18 sa aking orasan. 19 na. Mag 3-minute bio break lang tayo. And then we're going to continue the lecture. Okay? Sa mga may klase, okay lang that you leave at 11:30 later. Okay? Ipopost ko naman yung recording ng Zoom session natin. So kung saan yung hindi nyo naabutan, yan, pwede nyo i-play later. Okay? Bio break muna tayo ha, kahit 3 minutes lang please. And then we proceed to the next part or next concepts. Okay? Salamat.